T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Here's your career affirmation. You're going to rock that interview and get that job. Hey, happy Thursday, friends. I'm Anna Morgan, your career BFF. I help lost and overwhelmed job seekers go to confident job closers through my BFF method, which is behind the recruiter curtain, focused and fulfilling job search strategy, coupled with fabulous self-love and self-care, which helps you find aligned work that meets your purpose and your passion. And I give you tools and tricks that give you long-term career insurance so that you can be your best professional self for the rest of your career, moving into the next position and from now and on. So say hello in the comments. I know Dan is here. I know Kevin is here. Looking to see who else is joining us. Oh, I don't want to reload my StreamYard site. Just gonna check in here, look in the comments. We have, let me put some comments up here. As you might have seen, my client Kevin is in the show there, along with many of my past clients. Hi, Melanie, thanks for joining. So glad you're here. Yes. Awesome. So I am going live here every Thursday, and we have a system, which is really unusual for a neurodiverse and ADD person and entrepreneur that I am. But you know what? I've been working on things, which, progress, not perfection. It's something that I think we all do, right? So I come on live for, I'd say 15, 30, 45 minutes. I try to make it short, but sometimes when we're unmedicated like I am today, I might be a little bit more long-winded, to help solve a problem under the basic pillars of my program. So today is the Behind the Recruiter Curtain topic, which we are going to focus on leveling up, managing up to recruiters, because as we know, looking for work is an exercise in sales. If you don't believe that, I'm really sorry to break this hard truth to you. Like, if you have no sales background at all, like, this is your first exercise in learning how to sell yourself. And that's one of the things that I love about how I coach, is because I have an extensive sales background. So I can lean into that sales ability to help elevate your brand, help you say things more effectively, look at things in a different way to focus on how you can solve the problem, which is essentially the opening that the recruiter has. So I'm going to pause there. And no dogs today, Dan, no dogs. So I have my niece in town from New Hampshire. So she and my daughter are getting ready. We are, hey, David, nice to see you. We're headed to Blue Ridge to play on a lake, river, kind of mountain, kind of get out in nature, unplug for a little bit. Instead of doing like a longer summer vacation this summer, I've done like little short getaways because I was in New York like 3 weeks ago, maybe even less. So that has been how we're kind of doing our summer this time around. So no dogs, but I am taking one of 4 with me to the mountains. Is that bad that I'm taking one and leaving 3? I don't know. To be determined. Okay. So first, if you haven't said hello in the comments, please say hello. Give me some hearts. You know, it's really unfortunate that we don't have the laugh emoji on live yet, because I think sometimes I can be funny, but anyway, we're going to dive into managing up to recruiters. So I learned this term when way back in the day, I was recruiting executive assistants. And one of the primary functions of an executive assistant is to basically run the behind the scenes for a busy executive, right? It could be a CEO, a CFO, any kind of boardroom, big shot, essentially, right? And oftentimes it's these powerful support professionals that are doing quite a bit of the heavy lifting. And without those executive assistants of sort, these people would probably never get the things done that they get done. And so one of the skills that I would have to evaluate these executive assistants on would be called like how they manage up to these executive assistants. So is this resonating with folks? The idea of, being in a support position, but having the strength, the ability to communicate in a way. And here's a way to think about it. So it's kind of that age-old philosophy that you have to communicate in a way and like sell something and present something in a subtle way that almost makes the person think that it was their idea. But if not for you presenting it in this way, they may not have ever thought about it in that way. If the words are not coming out of my mouth completely correctly, let me know, because again, not meditated. I did meditate today, but I am not medicated. But I do have Celsius coming in through the body today. So I'm hoping that will help. Okay. Are y'all with me? So managing up. So it's basically having the wherewithal to, be forward thinking, anticipate needs, and communicate in a way you're thinking 5 steps ahead. So oftentimes those of us that worked in hospitality, David Coons, I know that you worked in hospitality, you understand this. Melanie, if I had to wager, you probably worked in hospitality at some point. A lot of recruiters had success in hospitality, restaurant, stuff like that previously. Amanda, good morning. We are talking about managing up to recruiters and presenting ideas so that people think it's actually their idea. Okay. And Vera is in the house. Career gap. Okay, we're coming into a new question, but let me finish this thought with managing up recruiters, because that is what we are solving today. So one of the things I've noticed in my 15 plus year career, I struggled to say 20 years. I said 20 years last week. This week I'm feeling 15 plus. My smile lines say 15 plus. So with that, it means when we go into these conversations with the first line recruiters, whether they're really good at what they do. Maybe they're average, maybe they're excellent. Like Melanie, myself, Dan, a lot of the recruiters I know, there are still ways that we can make sure that we're kind of dotting the I's and crossing the T's and really making sure that we're maximizing the time together so that we can get the best result out of the conversation. Because let's be honest, with the amount I hear job seekers complaining about ghosting and crickets, and people reach out about a job and then they send the resume and they hear nothing else, there's a couple of things that you can do before that. One, job seekers, don't be so freely like giving your resume away, right? Like play a little bit of, make sure that you get all the details ahead of time. Make sure that, there's different ways to manage opportunities if you're dealing with a third-party agency, an RPO, an executive recruiting firm. There are different details that you need to know, which is part of my entire behind the recruiter curtain concept and training. But from a generic high-level standpoint, the devils are in the details, right? And you want to make sure that you're maximizing the time together, you're building rapport, and you're following instructions first, right? The first thing that they're going to look for is like, can I get what I need in this call, right? But you as a job seeker have the right to ask the questions to say, hey, Yvonne, thank you. Did I answer all the questions for you about this opportunity? Here are a couple things that I need to know so that we're in alignment moving forward and I understand this whole interview process. What is the hiring manager's perception of quality? Help me understand why this position is open. Have you worked with this particular hiring manager or this company in the past? What is the common thread of success that you have found when you have placed people with this hiring manager or with this team in the past? If you didn't write down those couple questions, come back to the replay and write them down again because it was pretty good. Those are great questions to ask to, one, make the recruiter be like, dang, this candidate is asking great questions and is really invested in a mutual relationship. Because I can tell you on the other side, recruiters get a bad rep and have just as equally a tough time getting buy-in from candidates because we are treated very transactionally on our side as well. So, if one person extends that olive branch, it's like, then we can come together in harmonious, happy times and create results for each other, right? Good morning, G. I'm so glad you're here. I need some water. Now, this is when I wish I had a guest because then I like run out of breath talking. Okay. So, really don't hang up that first call. And I'm seriously just focusing on this session on first call with a recruiter, the nuts and bolts. Am I a right fit for the job? Do we have the client name? Are we talking about the money? I like to talk about money early and often because why waste each other's time, right? And if the recruiter is good at what they do in their intake meeting or with their client, if it's third party, they should have an idea of how much they can pay you if they want to take your time and get your resume to send to their client or their hiring manager. You have the right to have those conversations. Can I get an amen or some hearts or some claps or something? Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Sassy Sober Sabrina might come out here on my live. Sorry, it's Thursday, but it's my Friday because I'm going to the mountains. Whew, okay. I get fired up talking about recruiting. My Southern accent comes out, y'all. Okay, so communication is key. Take the time on the calls with the recruiter. Don't be rushed. Ask them how much time they can expect to have on the call. This is a mutual conversation. Your time is valuable. Their time is valuable. So take the time to provide your schedule and availability in advance. Sell yourself into the opportunity once you find out why the position is open. Is it turnover? Did they promote someone? what's the likeliness of hiring an external candidate over an internal candidate? How long has the hiring manager been there? Don't be afraid to get a little bit in the weeds in those first calls. I mean, don't overwhelm them. Stay away personally from benefits and, I would say extra total comp things. I mean, you want base commission. And if you're higher level candidate like RSU and stock, definitely makes sense when you're talking about comp. But try not to get too much in the weeds of like, what's your match on your 401k? Like, let's just get to the basics and decide if your skill set is going to immediately solve the problem that they're looking for. Ask the recruiters like the best way to communicate with them. Do they prefer text? Do they like to engage with talent on LinkedIn? What does that method look like? I can tell you, as someone who is active on LinkedIn, when I have seen candidates that I have interviewed engage on my content or send me messages based on something that is written on my profile, like that's memorable. That sticks out to me. I have forgotten to follow up with a candidate previously, and he liked a post on one of my pieces of content. And it triggered me to circle back to the hiring manager and be like, hey, do we have an update for so-and-so? And it prompted me to get back to him. So there is an element of, being visible on the recruiters after you've spoken with them to stay top of mind. But that's kind of a side tangent. Do you want to send me the link? Good morning. All right, I'm trying to catch up with my comments. Dan, what are you talking about? I'm just reading the comments for a moment. Okay. Hi there. Good morning. Good morning. Dan, is this for me? Do you want me to send the link? I don't know. Okay. And G said, agree. There's nothing more flattering than when someone says that something I shared in a post led them to take some kind of action based from it. Totally. So I know, G, that you have personally, as an HR and recruitment professional, seen kind of a dark side of some not so great recruiters out there. And I agree, Amanda, the gentle nudge is always helpful. Oh, you want to come on, Dan? Yeah. How do I do that? Let me see here. Invite, copy link. All right. Coming your way, Dan, in the DMs, if you want to jump on. I thought you were working though. I don't want to interrupt your workflow, but I don't have to be super strict today because I'm going to the mountains, and my little woman and her niece have not been able to stay on task with all the things that they need to get done today. So I'm not in a huge hurry to get to the mountains, which is a little crazy because who wouldn't be in a hurry? But I love you all. So I want to, I'm on a mission to help recruiters and job seekers get along better. Okay, so first line conversation with a recruiter. Don't be afraid to ask how they like to communicate. What is the next step? What is the interview process? Make sure you know who the client is, who the company is, that you have a firm job description, all of those things so that you know what is next. Yes. And here we go. Dan is coming in hot. Good morning. I know it's super early for you. How are you?
Well, I mean, I've been working since 4:30 this morning. I wouldn't call it super early.
That's because you don't sleep.
Well, no, it's because my child is going through sleep regression.
Oh, no.
So I know I'm not like done up, but I figured, why not?
Why not?
Well, why not? Why
We've
not?
had a busy week. You have had a busy week yourself. So let's all give some claps to Dan for celebrating his conversion at Amazon and his crazy viral post that he shared, 48 hours ago? Is that right?
Yeah, we're less than 48 hours. We're 36, I think, and we're right around 300,000 views and about 6,200 reactions.
Yeah, nuts. I
Which
still have like 200 connection requests to get through because of the shout out in that post. So,
yeah, I'm at
um,
600. I'm at 600, and I'm telling you, I was this close to not posting it because I felt so bad about, because I'm so sensitive to people that are having trouble getting opportunities. So I came very
but I think the louder message there was about hope, and
yeah.
behind the scenes, I have seen just the outpouring of support and how people definitely needed to hear that, and that's definitely when you were in it, like I said to you over text, like you were being the man that you needed 13 or 18 months ago, right? And that's the beautiful thing about this journey is, that ripple effect. Like it is so important when you have success as a job seeker that you pass on what you have learned and you be of service to others, because it is grueling, the mental twist and the tough times that come with this process can be so overwhelming for us.
Yeah, I mean, it really can. And the key to it is, and we've talked about this, giving yourself grace as you're pulling through. I was talking to a good friend of mine this morning. I did a post in the group, and she was like, "Oh," and it wasn't anything to do with her. It was just that they were moving away from what she was doing, and she's like, "I feel bad because I was so focused on getting the actual job done that I didn't think about myself." I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't feel bad about that. You were doing your job."
Right.
So we have to, I think intuitively when something happens, we look inward, but sometimes the answer is just we were in a shitty spot.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you jumped into recruiting full force, pivoted into the industry, having done an eclectic, array of things prior to it. What are you seeing as like a common trend where you would give job seekers some tips to manage up to recruiters? You've had an opportunity to learn from some really sharp people out
Yeah.
of the gate, and not everyone has that kind of experience. So, where do you feel that, obviously job seekers get frustrated, they miss different things in conversations, and it's hard. It's all about timing. It's being in the right place at the right time. And it's tricky. There is literally no perfect method to this process because we're dealing with humans, right?
Yeah. I mean, to answer your question, I think that more than ever, job seekers need to take control of the situation. There, a lot of times, there's this philosophy that because we need a job, that we're kind of at the mercy of whatever's being thrown at us. And that needs to change. I get the financial woes, I get the desperation that comes with it, but we have to remember that we are as much trying to make sure that they are a fit as that we are a fit.
Right.
And that comes with the territory. I'll be upfront because I have to walk the walk if I'm going
Hmm.
to talk the talk.
Sure.
I brought up my neurodiversity in my interview as was one of my questions.
Hmm.
Um, I talked about it. I put that under the disability for the ADA. I put, yes, I have a disability. Uh,
Hmm.
And these are things that most people are afraid to do, but what they'd be surprised by is that a lot of companies actually have departments to set you up for success. So if you have a physical disability and you need
Right.
accommodations, then they have that. So it's just a
Mhm.
matter of making sure that you're putting yourself in the right position.
Right. Yeah, totally. I think I'm like you too, that and I think this comes with time. And some people are not as comfortable kind of owning the neurodiversity. But I do think it has become more embraced now than it ever has. I mean, and I was diagnosed back in, I guess, late 80s, early 90s, and I shared a little bit of my story the other day. But I'm not afraid to talk about it either, because I do also believe that there are some significant strengths that come with my beautiful rabbit brain, that definitely help me be really good at my job. Um, so in regards to, I mean, what I'm trying to solve today is really like when we go into those first line questions with recruiters, like, what do we want to make sure that we understand when we're leaving that first call? Because, I hear consistently, and what we see in content on the platform is, this recruiter reached out and I was excited about the role, and then I never heard anything back. So, like, why does that happen, right? One, we send out a lot of messages, like our inbox gets a little overwhelmed, could be part of it. Two, we have the conversation and we're working with other hiring managers and things go in a different direction, and it's a time management issue, right? And then the recruiter just doesn't have the bandwidth necessarily to get back to the candidate, which is a shame because you're pretty diligent about managing your inbox or going to extensive lengths to try to get back to people, because we've been in that seat and we do our best. But definitely, I'm guilty. Things fall through the cracks sometimes. But if someone bumps it up and follows up again and I see it, like, I'm prompt to respond and own that I, dropped the ball and promptly apologize, right?
Well, this is a lot longer conversation
Yeah.
in regards to this, because I think that part of it is, to answer your question, is there's a distinction between how much you should be pulling away from if you're going on an interview with a staffing agency, a recruitment agency, or corporate. Corporate, the first call is always the recruiter phone screen, and that's just a standard screening. So you basically want to come out of that with your general information. I wouldn't even necessarily check to ask what the salary range is, although that's something you certainly can do. The main thing you should be taking away from it is this a position? Is this a department that really fits where you want to be?
Right.
Don't force a square peg in a round hole, even if it's a larger company and there's different departments. Don't feel the need to force yourself into one if you think you'd be better for the other. Patience is key. With agency and staffing firms, there tends to be a higher level of emphasis placed on those initial interviews because the interview process typically is less. They're interviewing you, they're getting the background, and they're advocating on your behalf. So a lot of times with agencies, you'll only have two calls. You'll have the call with the agency, and then you'll have the call with
the client.
Exactly, to go through. So there's really a strong differential between the two. As far as ghosting, this is where it's a lot longer conversation, because
I mean, we don't have to completely solve it today. I mean, the point is to start having more of these conversations for job seekers to see both sides of the conversation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and if I could have people leave like with one little nugget today, it would be to close the call, with understanding the next step, right? With saying, how is the best way, Dan, to follow up with you? Is it on LinkedIn? Is it direct message? Is it your Amazon email? What's your preference, right? do you prefer that I follow up with you, or should I just expect to hear from you? Like, don't be afraid to ask those expectations. Amanda, you asked, how do you form those, that into questions? Can you elaborate a little bit more, and I'll try to dig into that. I think it's, again, like, I think job seekers, somebody said to me recently, like, job seekers understand that recruiters do have quite a bit of power, right? Like, we essentially are hired to make the decision on whether we push the person through to the hiring manager or the major decision maker. So job seekers are a little timid. They don't want to be like too much or too loud or too pushy. And there's that delicate balance, right, of knowing your worth, standing in your power, setting boundaries and expectations for a successful partnership on both sides. And I'm speaking to both agency and corporate positions, because you and I on the corporate side, we are measured on time to fill, number of candidates we've presented. So that's the other thing that job seekers, also want to, they may not think of, is like, when we're talking to you, we don't intentionally not want to get back to you. I mean, we're trying to do the best to also keep our jobs and create experience, the right result for the organization we're representing and the hiring manager. So if we originally reached out to you, there was something about your background or your profile or your expertise that we considered would potentially be a mutual fit. So, about your ADD and if it matters. About your ADD and if it matters if you're self-diagnosed and have a formal diagnosis. I'll answer this and then you can pipe in, Dan. Amanda, I usually, because I answer interview questions in a very conversational and sales way, because grew up as a saleswoman. I usually mention my ADHD in a positive way of how I use it to solve problems. And I just mention that I have it and how I've used it to solve the problem, and then the result that I've created. So I almost use it in a like star format: the situation, the task, the action, and the result. So I frame my neurodiversity in a positive way, but I'm also letting them know that I would be technically in that diagnosed category. As for an informal or formal diagnosis, it's not for them to know. And then Dan, I'll refer to you because you have a little bit more knowledge on that.
So here's the problem. Legally, in order to get accommodations, you do need to be formally diagnosed as being neurodiverse or whatever. That is the only enforceable way that you have to guarantee those accommodations are met. Now, does that mean that companies shouldn't be able to provide accommodations based on your needs? No, that's not the case. But as a standard, you definitely want that formal diagnosis. The problem with that, and this is delving into the deep end, that depending on where you are, not every state diagnoses the same way. When I was originally diagnosed in New Jersey, and then when I moved out to California, in order to restart my medication, I needed to go back and get re-diagnosed because it had been about 15 years. And the methodology that they used was absolute BS. It was not a test that was set up for the neurodiverse community. It was basically just a random. So it could be very difficult to get. What the best option would be is, depending on what your insurance is, to really do a search in the region for who specializes in what doctors specialize in neurodiversity and take it from there. Okay.
And in true ADHD fashion, we're getting off on a tangent. But good question, Amanda, and we can talk more on that during Job Connection Tuesday Collective. If you are not a part of that group, join Dan's group. I am a admin there and try to contribute there as much as possible. And that group has grown to 9,000 members now. Is that right?
So because of the post the other day.
Speak up a little bit, Dan. You're super quiet.
Because of the post the other day, we're looking at closer to 9,500. We've seen a huge influx. A lot of that is because I was getting so many messages, I had to direct people in a certain direction. And my group is where I have the ability to speak to a large audience at one time. It's just not feasible for me to answer questions one at a time. I would need to get paid an exorbitant amount to do that and keep up.
Yeah. So this is why we have the Behind the Recruiter curtain topic, every month, so we can dive into some of these different things. And some of the questions that have come up, I will circle back directly and answer some questions. There was a particular one that was asked, Anna Morgan, career gap, interrogation, snobbery. What? The periodic apathetic internal recruiter who appears bothered about digging into my background. And then 3, the best one, a recruiter reported job offer with a follow-up call to indicate, so sorry, that was a mistake. Good times. Interesting. So there is a wide variety, as demonstrated here, of recruiters. So, interesting. Career gap interrogation. That's no fun. And sometimes, I've been on calls before where I've like been confused by the resume, or I'm trying to understand the progression, and I've had to ask a lot of questions, but it's like, that's my job to understand like where you've been, what you've done, and where you're looking to go. But obviously I did it in a nice way, I hope. And then apathetic internal recruiter bothered about digging into my background. How you manage up to the apathetic internal recruiter is to, sell yourself, right? Understand the job description, highlight how you can solve that problem. And then, maybe that turns things around. This is the managing up piece that I'm talking about, because again, we can't guarantee the level of intelligence of some of the folks that we're marketing ourselves to. And then report a job offer, the follow-up.
While you're looking at that, I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
It's ironic that this question was being asked today, because this morning I was doing sourcing, and I came across a candidate that on their profile put career gap on LinkedIn. And I sent them a message. I said, I just want to thank you, because you have the courage to do this when a lot of people wouldn't. And as a recruiter, it's not my job to judge you based on what you haven't done. It's to take you based on what you have. So the more people that we talk about this with and we normalize this with, hopefully we start changing the way the profession views this. Because most people, if they have a career gap, that doesn't mean they're not doing anything.
Right.
It means that they're doing other things that they need to do. And those things can be transferable.
Totally. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's like what's awesome about people like you and I that have the brains that we have, and why we make great recruiters, is that we can see those things and sell those aspects to the hiring managers and decision makers. So we need more of us in the recruiting space. So, it's tricky. I have done numerous videos about, different tricks about how to work effectively with recruiters. I'm going to start kind of resharing some of that content. Don't be afraid to, message me directly with particular questions. I love staying on top of, the things that you all are faced with. G and I talk on a regular basis. Sometimes I'm just baffled, and yes, as Melanie said, not all recruiters are created equally. Melanie is a great recruiter, and she is actively entertaining new opportunities, I believe. So y'all connect with her. And, we are always looking to create results for folks that we represent. And in theory, recruiting is simple, but but in execution is actually very complex. So, it's all about giving grace, which is what I talk a lot about, and being kind, and don't be afraid to, ask the tough questions, set those, boundaries, and follow up. I mean, timing is everything. Staying top of mind, being in the right place at the right time, and just keep trudging the road to your happy destiny. So I am headed out here for a couple days, and I'll be back in the seat, ready to go Tuesday morning, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Dan, congrats again. And I'm so incredibly just excited for you, and so glad that you are a part of my tribe. You're even though I have a huge family, you would fit right in as an extra brother or cousin. And it's just been awesome to watch you go on this journey. And I'm going to close this out, but stick on and we'll catch up a little bit. David, G, Kevin, Melanie, Amanda, everyone that has joined, Balwinder, thank you for joining. I so appreciate your support. If you all, anyone does a recommendation or a post about this live or invites people to follow the live, tag me in it, let me know, and I'll send you some Career BFF swag in the mail. All right, we are out.